Gas prices reached a new record high in the GTA as the average price inches closer to $2 a litre now.
Yeah, it's a scary prospect. So for more on the rising cost of gas and so much more, we're joined live by BNN's Paul Bagnell. Paul, thanks for joining us this afternoon. It really doesn't stop here, does it? Because, you know, the price of gas is one thing, but then your food's got to get somewhere. The restaurants have to pay the extra, and there's really a ripple effect to this. So what's the concern here? What are the economic implications of this?
There's a lot of implications, Nick, and you've summarized them pretty well. Gasoline goes into almost every product we consume because many of the products we consume are transported by trucks on highways. Those that arrive by rail are affected by the price of diesel fuel. That's also up, and all of that is because crude oil prices remain very strong. Crude oil prices, the benchmark in New York, trading today at about 110 US dollars. That's roughly double where it was a year ago and much higher than anybody thought it would be. So here's some example of gasoline prices. These come from Calibrate, a company that analyzes changes in gasoline prices at the pump. The City of Toronto in early January, $1.44 per litre. On May the 5th, yesterday, $1.90 very nearly per litre. In Mississauga, $1.42 approximately in January, $1.88 yesterday in Mississauga. And finally, in Vaughan Markham, roughly 143.5 cents in January. Yesterday, $1.89, very nearly 190. So anybody who drives a vehicle knows how much more they're paying at the pumps. And as you say, this ripples through the economy.
Yeah, and let's stay with that ripple through the economy, Paul, because we know that higher gas prices affects the transportation of food, and we've been seeing the inflation of food for quite some time now. Now the three biggest grocers have kind of put out, I know that Loblaws has put out their quarterly report saying that their No Frills private brand is seeing an increase in sales, and that's because it's changing people's shopping habits and people are going to more discount shopping.
Right. Food inflation is a big factor in the grocery business. It tends to lift profit in the grocery business, which is typically a narrow margin business. To give you an example, Loblaw had revenue, that's essentially the money flowing through the cash registers, of more than $12 billion in its most recent quarter. After all of that, it had a profit of about $450 million. That's a big number, but it's a small percentage of revenue. And so you're right. The higher food prices are doing several things. One of them is increasing the appeal in many shoppers' minds of discount shoppers. More recently, we've seen Statistics Canada report on inflation in Canada. It was last running, the most recent numbers we have for March, it was running at 6.7%. And even if you exclude those gasoline prices that we've talked about, inflation was running at 5.5%. That's the highest level of inflation since 1991.
Wow.
Okay, and Paul, so we've got the Bank of Canada hiked interest rates last month, likely going to hike them a couple of more times, at least the key interest rate here. Is that going to really help much at all, or is so much of this out of our control because of geopolitics, you know, what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, you know, American political situations, supply chains? Like, is anything we are doing here really having much of an impact to help us?
That's a great question. There's certainly the effect of the Ukraine war is a wild card and something that cannot be controlled. However, the Bank of Canada has tools at its disposal, most prominently its ability to raise interest rates, and it is determined to raise interest rates to the point where it brings inflation under control. The big challenge for a central bank is to not bring an economy into recession by raising rates too much. So it's a very delicate balancing act. The other thing the Bank of Canada wants to do is message Canadians, and that's why the Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem and other senior governors of the bank make fairly frequent speeches and appearances, and they talk to Canadians in these speeches. And what they want to do is assure Canadians, we've got this under control, we will bring inflation down. And what they intend to do there is try to dissuade businesses, for instance, from increasing their prices before the businesses feel they have to, because inflation can be self-fulfilling. Some businesses may raise their prices because they think their input costs in the future are going to get higher.
A very fine balance. Okay, BNN's Paul Bagnell, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jen.